My name is Kristen, Ogden. I've lived in Virginia almost all my life, as has my husband. We live in Prince George County. My husband has the misfortune of being a very severe, intractable pain patient. He has actually had pain almost all of his life, and he is 69 years old. For 8.5 years, we went to California, and my husband was a patient of this doctor who is no longer practicing. My husband had been seeking help for his pain for many years. We had been seeking help for him nonstop for many, many years. We tried many doctors in many specialties. We tried many medications. We tried many treatments and therapies, but nothing really helped him. This doctor was one of a few who believed it was appropriate as a last resort treatment to care for patients with intractable pain with opioids at whatever dose it took to manage their pain. My husband was prescribed a dose of opioid medication. It turned out to be a quite high dose. But it's important that you hear what I'm saying. That dose did not harm him. It did not cause him to be impaired. It did not cause him to get high. He was on that dose of medication beginning in December of 2010 with no change in dose, no increase in dose, no side effects to speak of. The only thing that happened was that these medications enabled him to have control of his pain, a good quality of life, and much better functional ability to do things. For 8.5 years, he enjoyed excellent pain medication. He enjoyed the benefit of being able to go places and do things. But the Commonwealth of Virginia implemented a threshold in their prescription monitoring program, and their policy assumes that if your daily dose is above a certain magic number, that you are by definition a suspicious person. You are most likely engaged in abuse of the drug or diversion of the drug. None of these things are true, but because my husband's dose exceeded the magic number, he was flagged in the system. Our pharmacy was targeted for investigation. A whole series of events played out, and now my husband can't fill medications, the same ones he'd been filling since December of 2010 right here in Virginia. He can't fill them any longer. My husband is at home suffering. He would be here with me if he still had his medication at an adequate dose. But he's basically been cut off, and now we are seeking other options. And it's not easy to find good options for people like my husband. I want to tell you, there is a very small subset of severe intractable pain patients who cannot process medications efficiently compared to some people. So they require a high dose. In some cases, the problems are genetic. In some cases, people can't process medications appropriately because they have had extensive surgeries and much of their intestine has been removed. There are many reasons why individuals are not able to process medications like you or I might be able to. Unfortunately, my husband is one of these people, and the only thing that can help his pain is a high dose of opioid pain medications. That's real, folks. I often say to people, just imagine the worst pain that you have ever felt. Take a minute and think about that. Then think about it to wonder, what would it be like if your life was like that every minute of every day? Every week, every month, every year, for years, or decades in my husband's case. There really are people who suffer like that with pain that is like 10 on the 1 to 10 scale, and without adequate medication, their life has no quality. Unfortunately, my husband and I have now arrived back in the bad old days. And I call on the Commonwealth of Virginia to reconsider their policy. Stigma is a huge problem for chronic pain patients.
Yes.
We are looked down on. Families are looked down on. If you mention what your needs are for help or treatment, people cast a suspicious eye on you and you're assumed to be a person engaged in doing bad things. We're not people who do bad things. We both moved to Virginia as children with our fathers, who were career Air Force officers and World War II era pilots. Both of our dads served their country for years honorably and retired in Virginia. I worked as a civilian for the federal government for 36 years. I served my country as a civilian for 36 years and retired in 2014. I no longer feel welcome in Virginia. I call on the Commonwealth to reconsider. You need to do something different. You're causing people to suffer terribly. All the people here are here because they have chronic pain issues and they're not getting what they need or they wouldn't have come out today. I have one final comment. Well, a couple final comments. We need to put good doctors back to work, the ones who've been targeted and pressured to get out of practicing, even though they haven't done anything wrong and they've never been charged with any crime. This man is one of those. I'd like to make a statement specifically to Governor Northam. Governor Northam, I voted for you. When you ran for governor, you featured lots of ads that talked about your background and your experience as a compassionate physician. And I had a flicker of hope that maybe you would look at the issue of severe chronic pain a little differently. Some months ago, you encountered a difficult situation wherein your values were called into question, and you came to a point in your life, Governor Northam, where you had to reconsider whether you may have had biases and attitudes that you hadn't really been aware of, that you hadn't really thought about in regard to race relations in Virginia and the respective experiences of white Virginians versus black Virginians. You came forward and said you had had a aha moment, and you realized that you need to look at some things differently and that you were going to stay on in your job and you were going to try to make things better. Governor Northam, I suggest to you today that you really need to have an aha moment about the stigma and the experiences of chronic pain patients, because what's happening in your state on your watch is not right. And I call on you to consider whether you may have attitudes and biases that need to be re-examined.
Thank you.
I believe that you can lead the way to make Virginia a more forward-moving state in the care of chronic pain patients.